Hi, everyone. I see we're starting to get folks coming in. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We're gonna give about 5 minutes at the top of the hour to let guests join, and then I'll get us started with introductions before we get on to the main event. Hello, Robin, and hello to everyone else who's come in the last few minutes. We're waiting until the 5 minutes after the hour, let some folks come in, and then I'll get started with the presentation before I hand things over to our friends at the Field Museum. Um, in regards to buttons, if you are looking for access to captions, it should be down on the bottom of your screen. If you don't see the access to captions, then you should be able to click the three horizontal dots that say more, and captions should be one of your options. Alrighty, it is 5 after, and so I'm going to go ahead and get us started. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I am Alex Grandstaff, ASAN's program manager, and I will be moderating tonight's conversation with the Field Museum. I want to welcome our human representatives of the Field Museum tonight, Jeff Schroeder and Eduardo Briseno. We are so excited to have y'all here today, and we are so excited to meet your dinosaur residents. Before we get into that, I'm going to give y'all a little bit of housekeeping. If y'all are looking for access to our cart services that we have present tonight, you can check the bottom of your screen, and there should be a place to access captions. If you do not see a button that is labeled captions, please look for the button that is 3 horizontal dots that says more. Click that, and it should give you the option to either show or hide your captions. Now, tonight is a night where that is sort of bringing together a month of exciting dinosaur moments for Autism Acceptance Month. And I want to shout out my fellow ASAN team members who've been doing a lot of work to bring this together to really celebrate and highlight a lot of the work that we are doing every day to support the autistic community and autistic self-advocates in advocating for our rights, and really kind of bring it together in a way that allows us to truly celebrate and experience joy around it. And staff's mutual collective love of dinosaurs is what we decided on this month. So we hope you've been enjoying seeing our emails, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's presentation. I also want to mention that during the presentation, we will have a couple moments where the camera will move around on the Field Museum side. During those moments, we're going to switch into some trivia slides where folks can answer trivia questions in the chat just so we avoid any kind of like motion sickness happening. And now, before we get into the program, I want to talk a bit about Autism Acceptance Month. As I mentioned, if you've been following our emails with this month, you've seen that we've had some prehistoric visitors to our DC office who've been just as excited about self-advocacy as we are about dinosaurs. And when it comes to self-advocacy, even when our message comes in a sillier or more lighthearted package, I promise you that ASAN is always sincere. ASAN believes that the goal of autism advocacy should be a world in which autistic people enjoy equal access, rights, and opportunities. We work to empower autistic people across the US and in collaboration with self-advocacy groups across the world to take control of our own lives and the future of our common community. And we seek to organize the autistic community to ensure that our voices are heard in the national conversation about us, because there should be nothing about us without us. Autism Acceptance Month itself was created by the autistic community as a way to both celebrate the achievements of the self-advocacy movement and push for a world where autistic people's needs are supported. We work towards a future where everyone understands that autism is not something to be aware of as a cautionary tale, but something to embrace. Autism does not make our lives worse or smaller. Ableism and the refusal to trust self-advocates and include us in the making of policies that affect our lives is what makes our lives harder. This is why ASAN works hard to make sure that the voices of self-advocates are included in policy decisions and that self-advocates have the tools to know and fight for our rights. And that is possible thanks to the support of our community. We are able to provide resources and training to self-advocates and host events like this one tonight for free, thanks to the generosity of members of our community through donations. And we really want to thank y'all for that, and also ask if you can donate tonight. We would love to see that. And you can do so directly to ASAN through our website, through a one-time donation, or by becoming a monthly member. And I want to highlight something very exciting for you. If you become a monthly member this month, on our Policy Pals level, you can get this t-shirt that is lovingly designed by one of our ASAN team members and is incredibly glorious. I had to get one for myself. I'm going to go ahead, and you'll see opportunities to donate on the trivia slides tonight by a QR code. But you will also, I'll just paste the links here. because I also want to highlight our friends at the Field Museum have a membership program in which you can support them. The Field Museum is based in Chicago. And if you love the dinosaurs tonight, I want to promise you that the Field Museum has even more cool stuff that you should check out. Please support them. And thank you again for joining us this evening. Now I want to pass it off. Jeff, are you ready to take the baton?
I am ready, Alex. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thanks. Hi, all. I'm so excited that we're able to go live here from the Field Museum, from the Dinosaur Hall, just after hours, after close at 5. So we're going to have the place pretty much to ourselves and be able to check out some really cool dinosaurs. And I love to be interactive. So please do ask questions, send us little comments in the chat. But again, my name's Jeff Schroeder, he, him, and I am a bit of a dinosaur expert, but not as much as our paleontologist. So I will do my best to hit all your questions. So yeah, you are now live at Chicago's Field Museum in the Dinosaur Hall. And we are looking at a very special specimen here. Might not have been who you expected right off the bat, because we've got a very special guest later, dinosaur-wise, but this is Parasaurolophus. And this is actually 85% real fossilized dinosaur bones. And the cool thing about our Parasaurolophus, this duckbill type of dinosaur, is that this is a holotype. And I don't know if anyone is familiar with the term holotype, but that is kind of the standard for a dinosaur species. When a new dinosaur is discovered, it's named, it's identified as a new species, and that is the holotype. So the Parasaurolophus we have is kind of the first one and the standard for that, at least that species of Parasaurolophus. Other cool things about this creature. So you can kind of see its head here. I'm going to try not to move around too much, but if you can get a good view of its head, it's got that wonderful crest. There we go. Yeah. So you see Parasaurolophus's crest up there. That is what we think it would use to communicate. So dinosaurs have different ways to communicate. One of them for Parasaurolophus, we believe, is to blow air through that horn and make sounds to signal other members of the herd, because we do think they were a herd animal. If something is coming up like a meat eater, we're going to make a little sound, let everyone know. If a little baby has strayed from the herd, maybe it's a different sound to let them know. So yeah, Parasaurolophus is a really neat dino and really kind of special to us because it's one of our holotypes. Anyone out there heard of Brachiosaurus? If you have, that is another holotype from the Field Museum. Probably even more famous than Parasaurolophus. Brachiosaurus we don't have on display right now, but we do have the original Brachiosaurus here, the long neck plant eater. So we're going to keep going and talk about different dinos. And just to give you a quick introduction, for those who maybe don't know quite as much about dinosaurs, there are some different types. So Parasaurolophus is an ornithopod or bird-footed dinosaur, and also what we call a duckbill, because their mouth kind of looks like a duck. It's not exactly a duck's bill, but it's similar. I'm going to do a quick turn. I just want to give you a heads up. It's going to take a couple seconds. Try to go nice and easy here to our next dinosaur. Some of you may recognize this one. This is the great thing. I'm in a great spot. I've got all sorts of dinos. Another one is, and feel free to put this in the chat too if you'd like to participate, if you know what this dino's name is. A pretty famous dinosaur with 3 horns, the 3-horned face. Yep, people are already hitting it. Awesome, it's Triceratops. Yeah, so we have a contrast here. Triceratops, beautiful skeleton, but this is a cast. It's actually one from the museum in New York, but we have a cast or an exact replica. So we use both casts and the real deal to show off, but most of what we're going to do is real. Triceratops has a really fancy name. It's called marginocephalian. That just means it has a big crest around the edge or the margin of its head. But Triceratops, super famous, one of our favorite dinos here. Plant eater, a herbivore, but well defended if it needs to with those horns. So we've seen the duckbills, right? We've seen the crested like Triceratops. We're going to do one more turn. let you know here, ready? And just to see what's behind me here. The lighting's a little tougher here, but I'm going to do my best. We've got two dinos, two more types of dinosaurs. Right here, we see a meat eater that looks suspiciously like T-Rex, but it's not. It's quite smaller than T-Rex, and we'll see that in a little bit. That is Dysplatosaurus. We have a small cousin of T-Rex, but that introduces our next group of dinos, the theropods. And those guys are beastfoot. Theropod means beastfoot. They've got these wicked claws. You can just kind of see. We'll see them better with another dino, but they've got those big three-toed claws. And then, of course, you can see behind me, a bit of a light there, but we've got the long-necked dinosaur, and that is Apatosaurus, another famous one, not to be confused with Brontosaurus. But Apatosaurus is a long-necked plant eater called a sauropod. It's hard to see behind me, so I'm not going to move a lot for this one, but the last group of dinos we have are the armored dinosaurs. Does anyone know what this one is? If you'd like to put it in the chat, feel free. Aha, someone already got it. Yeah, you guys are on it. This is Ankylosaurus with its club tail. The Thyreophorans, the armored dinosaurs. So the Ankylosaurus, Stegosaurus with its plates, a lot of those. So we've introduced our 5 dinosaur families. Little aside, Dysplatosaurus here, about 60% complete. Apatosaurus, another real one, and that's about 70% complete. Now I want to pause for a moment because I've talked a lot here about a lot of different dinos. And Alex, see if anyone has any questions that we'd like to answer before we begin moving towards a really special dino.
We do actually have a question in the chat. We have a question from Robin asking, are there any current day animals that are in close relation to dinosaur families?
I absolutely love that question. And you know what? This won't be a spoiler because I was waiting for the question, like, what is the most amazing fact about dinosaurs? And let's just do that right now. And some of you may know this. Feel free to pop that in the chat even while I'm talking. But there is actually a creature today, or a group of creatures, a family, that is not only related to dinosaurs, but this amazing fact. We always hear dinosaurs are extinct, dinosaurs died out, dinosaurs were destroyed by the asteroid. That's not true. There was actually a small part of the true family of dinosaurs, a small branch that survived the asteroid. And that small branch has now diversified into a huge, diverse group of creatures today. They are actually living dinosaurs. And hopefully you don't mind my saying names, but Morgan had a great answer in the chat and said birds. Absolutely. Yes, so birds are living dinosaurs. Not only related, they are a small, special family, the only surviving dinosaurs. So that is what I think is one of the most amazing dinosaur facts. And the answer to your question is that we still have living dinosaurs today, birds, and they come from the bigger family that includes things like T-Rex, Dysplatosaurus, and raptors, which might not surprise you, those small kind of bird-like dinosaurs. Awesome. Any other questions? Or Alex, if you had any for me that we want to hit before we move on to the main event?
We do have some questions for ASN has some questions later for our Q&A section.
Okay.
If you'd like, I can toss you one of them right now. Could you tell us some more about the accessibility features at your museum?
Yeah, sure. So we have a few different things. We do have an app that's called Field Museum for All, and we are in the process of updating it. It does need some updates, but it's still available. Field Museum for All app, and that is a great way to start your journey, to kind of get on there and plan out your trip to the museum. We also do have some sensory bags that have different things in them, including like weighted vests or like sunglasses to put on, a book, things like that, and some fidgets, I believe. And those are available when you come in. You can get those at like visitor services. Of course, we have like accessible entrance where you can drop off, where there's wheelchairs available. and then elevators nearby that. So yeah, there are some different features. And we have things in exhibits like right here. Again, I want to try not to move too much to throw anyone off, but if you look, the rail here with this Platosaurus, this right here is touchable. That is an exact replica of a T-Rex too. And so you can walk right up to the rail, you can hit a button. Probably hard to hear, but it tells the dinosaur's name. And then we also have the touchable here with the tooth. So we do have some things built into the exhibits as well. Great question. All right. If you guys are ready, I'm ready to move on to the star of the show. And we can do our first trivia question.
Awesome. All right. So, trivia question, please answer in the chat. Which prehistoric era of dinosaurs do T-Rexes like Sue come from? We have in the chat, Jennifer has said Cretaceous. And Mel's, would you like to tab to the answer slide? That is correct. So T-Rexes like Sue lived in the late Cretaceous period, which is actually closer to our modern times now than it is to when Stegosauruses were roaming the earth, which I find amazing. Next, let's go on to another one. So which dinosaur, oh, awesome, that was so fast. All right, I'll let y'all still answer this question though. Which dinosaur was only 4 inches tall and primarily ate bugs? This little guy is a rarer creature, so I'm going to be very excited if someone does know this one. All right, I won't hold chat in suspense, especially with, there we go. We have Zoe answering, this is my favorite dinosaur, Kongaphanon Kelly. I should have practiced that more before this session. But yes, Kongaphanon Kelly is a 4-inch tall bug-eating dinosaur that researchers think would make a great pet, which is not super scientific on their part, but I can't argue with them. Jeff, I will pass it back to you.
All right, thank you. So yes, we have moved probably as fast as or faster than a T-Rex to this next section. And we've got a little reflection. I don't know if I can cut that out a bit, but we are now with the star of our show, Sue the T-Rex. Hopefully some of you out there have heard of Sue. Sue is incredible. Sue is our most famous dinosaur and probably the most famous single dinosaur in the world. And right now we are with Sue's skull. And this is the real skull of Sue the T-Rex. You notice it's kind of by itself here. It's in this case. And the reason for that is that it is studied so often by so many paleontologists that it's just easier to have it in this case and wheel it right out to study than to, well, you'll see in a moment, climb a 13-foot ladder to look at the one on the actual fossil. So this is the real skull. Sue the T-Rex. Does anyone know why it's named Sue? Feel free to put that in the chat for us if you do know how the T-Rex got the name Sue. I will give you a hint. Sue the T-Rex, we actually don't know if they are male or female. You hear me use the pronoun they. Sue is also a social media personality. Sue the social media star goes by they, them. Our Sue is a fossil, so we usually just say it for the fossil or Sue for the name. But Sue got the name in a certain way. After its discoverer, yes, Morgan, good job. Yes, Susan Hendrickson is a self-taught paleontologist who was the discoverer of this T-Rex. Now, a lot of crazy stuff happened, and we won't go into all that, but there were some legal things. The T-Rex was given back to the landowner who put it up for auction, and Field Museum won Sue the T-Rex on auction in 1997. So Sue came here, went through a lot of prep work, and went on display in the year 2000. So Sue's been here ever since. But we've been able to study and learn some really incredible things about Sue. just from even studying the skull. So as far as the skull, I am going to move because I just don't like this glare. So let me stop my video for just a second, literally like 5 seconds. And I'm going to try to move to Sue's front. Let's see how that looks. Ah, there we go. Still got a little glare from the screen, but we're going to do our best here with Sue. So we're looking at Sue's real skull. And if you notice, it doesn't look straight. It's a little bit smashed. And that is because, weird fact, after Sue died, Sue's head fell off. We're not sure why, but the head fell off and ended up smashed underneath Sue's gigantic hips for 67 million years. That is how long Sue was in the ground, 67 million years. The skull got a little smashed up, but it's still so well preserved. The best preserved adult T-Rex, that we can see details on Sue you might not see with any other T-Rex. And I want to show you just a couple things that have to do with Sue's skull right here. And this is one, you've actually seen a little bit of it already. Right here is a replica of one of Sue's teeth. Just one tooth of 58 that a T-Rex would have in its mouth. And you can see, for size comparison, next to my arm, next to my head, these teeth were built for a carnivore. A lot of that's root, but what was sticking out here would have serrated edges to slice right through meat. And we estimate the T-Rex's bite force at about 20,000 pounds per square inch, focused on the tips of these, about 8,000 overall with the jaws. These teeth would go through flesh and that could literally crush bone apart. So T-Rex was a bone eater as well. It would devour its prey, gulping down about 90 pounds in a bite. Now, Sue is impressive in a lot of ways. And it's a little hard to see. I'm going to try to, still looking for that really good, sorry about that, everyone. There we go. There we go. All right, there's Sue's skull. And you can really see right here, I'm showing you the eye right there, big old nasal cavity. And then in front, we have the big nostril. And then you can see those wicked teeth. So Sue's eyes were probably very big. They're not this big spot. A lot of people think of that. They're the smaller one, but they were still probably the size of a big orange or a small grapefruit. And so those eyes would allow the T-Rex to see quite a ways into the distance, maybe 5 miles. And another of my favorite things, I mean, I like these movies, but one of my favorite things is to debunk certain movies. Some of you may have heard a certain scene in a certain movie that says, you're standing right in front of a T-Rex, stand very, very still. They can't see you if you stand still. Well, we don't think that's true. Their eyesight was just as good as ours, if not better. And so they could use depth perception. They could pick you right out of your background. They could smell you. They could see you right in front of them. Incredible eyesight, incredible teeth, and great sense of smell. But there is something on a T-Rex that's a little bit interesting and maybe a little bit small. I'm going to show this, and I would like, if anyone wants to participate in the chat, to tell me what they think this is from a T-Rex. Let's get that nice and close. What part of a T-Rex do we have right here? That is a great guess, Robin. The upper arm joints, arm bone, claw. A lot of people are guessing arm or claw because yes, T-Rex is famous for having small arms. Dinosaurs are also famous for having something else that's kind of small. This would go right about there in Sue's skull. Not even an ear bone. This is the T-Rex's brain. There you go. This is the T-Rex's brain. You can compare it to my head, my size. Yes, this is the central control unit for that gigantic 9-ton dinosaur. Now, for a dinosaur, we don't want to judge them just on their brain size because we think they packed a lot of brain cells into this little space. Maybe like birds do today. Once again, birds being living dinosaurs. And so T-Rex probably did a lot with the smallish brain that it had. All right, I think we're ready to head into Sue's main exhibit and see the body. Now, Alex, there is going to be a little bit more movement here. I don't know if you had another trivia question or if we just wanted to do a quick break. Awesome.
We've got some more trivia, no worries.
Perfect. All right.
All right. So here's a fun one. What is the state dinosaur of Arizona? Anyone have guesses? It is not Triceratops, Colleen. Does anyone else want to guess for what the state dinosaur of Arizona is before we tab over? All right. It's not pterodactyl either, Robin. It is, in fact, Arizona's state dinosaur is called the Sonorosaurus, and it's the most complete fossil of this species, which was on display in the Sonoran Desert Museum. It actually became the state dinosaur in Arizona thanks to a kid who is named Jax Weldon in 2018, who petitioned the Arizona state government to have the Sonorosaurus be the state dinosaur. And with that, I'm going to pass it back to Jeff. Thank you all for playing.
Awesome. Thank you, Alex. That's pretty cool, getting to suggest a name for a dinosaur. So we are in Sue's exhibit, and this is the real deal. You're looking at Sue the T-Rex, all 40 feet. Alive would be 9 tons, just the skeleton, 2 tons, and about 13 feet tall at the hips, even a little taller at the head. So Sue, again, is one of the 2 biggest, the best preserved adult T-Rex in the world. And Sue is one of 56 T-Rexes, but so much has been learned about T-Rexes from our famous Sue here. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Sue, and definitely, if you have any questions, pop those in the Q&A or chat. I'd love to answer Sue questions because this is what we're here for, Sue the T-Rex. So I gave you a few stats on Sue. We're going to take a look at a few different interesting features. We saw the skull up close. Works a little bit better to see that. But if we look at Sue's body, you can see how big that is. We moved Sue upstairs here to this new exhibit in 2018. We were able to change a few things. That's something important about paleontology. It is always changing, and we're always learning new things. And you can't be afraid to make a mistake and then change it based on the evidence you see. So very evidence-based, and our evidence are these fossils, mainly. So you can see right above my hand, we have this weird sort of breadbasket, these ribs in the belly. Those are something that we always had, but we just weren't quite sure how they fit onto the T-Rex. They're called gastralia, and they're actually free-floating rib structures that sit within the belly, the skin of the belly, almost like Stegosaurus's plates sit in the skin on the back. And those things probably help the T-Rex breathe and get that oxygen in through the big muscles. But we learned more and more by studying other T-Rexes and Sue about how these would actually fit on the T-Rex. And so we were able to add them when we moved Sue upstairs. I don't know about you, but for me, that gives Sue the appearance of a 9-ton T-Rex. Without those, Sue looked more like just mere 6 or 7 tons. Still pretty huge. You can also see the infamous small arms of the T-Rex. Now, they actually are about the size of my arms, an adult human, but for a creature that's 9 tons and 40 feet, that's not real big. Those arms, Does anyone have any thoughts or ideas they'd like to pop in the chat for us? What you think the T-Rex used its little tiny arms for? So while you're putting those in, I'm going to show you an object. We'll see if anyone has any thoughts on the arms. This is a claw here. We saw the tooth before. This is a toenail or a toe claw. You can see more of that Sue's foot there. The big three claws, I'll move so you can see. There we go. The big three claws, the theropod, the beast foot. And this is one of those claws. This is an exact replica. And again, compared to my head, that's not the whole toe. That's the toenail. Quite the toenail. So we're getting some responses. That's awesome. Let's see. Holding on to things like prey, balance. Yes, those are two of the leading hypotheses. That's great. So we have probably, I'd say, 4 main hypotheses or possibilities. It's still being studied. We took one of Sue's arms off a couple of years ago and sent it off to a lab, and they're studying it and we're taking a look. Hopefully we'll have better answers soon, but balance is one. Grabbing prey like a meat hook, literally, to get the bite down is another. One of our paleontologists has brought up the possibility of holding a mate during mating. And another interesting hypothesis is that they might literally be evolving away. A little lesson in natural selection. Let's say you've got 4 T-Rexes gathered around a dead Triceratops fighting for this kill, right? And 3 of them have short arms. One has long arms. The one with longer arms reaches in. What happens to its arm? It gets bit off. That T-Rex doesn't survive. Its genes don't pass on. And what we get are the T-Rexes with the shorter arms actually being more effective because they're relying on their teeth. So that's an interesting hypothesis too, but we're actually still kind of out there on that, and we don't know quite what they used them for. Let's see. I saw a question pop in. How do the proportions of Sioux compared to proportions of modern day birds? Oh, that's a good question. And I like respectively, I don't know, but I do know one thing, and I will show it to you right now, is that Sioux had something common to modern birds. And let's see, no, that's not gonna work. Okay, we just want a good Sioux picture here. It's pretty hard to see, but you can see Sue's big shoulder blades where I'm pointing here. In between, it's really difficult. There's a smallish bone that looks like this. It looks like a boomerang. I don't know if anyone out there has either eaten chicken, has chickens, enjoys chickens, but chickens have a certain bone in their fronts that people are known to break sometimes. Anyone know what that bone is? On a T-Rex, we call it a furcula. On a chicken or a turkey, it has a different name. But this is, yeah, here come the answers. Awesome, guys. Yeah, a wishbone. This is a T-Rex wishbone. It had a wishbone just like a gigantic chicken or turkey. And you can see that, in proportion to the animal, it's fairly similar, maybe a little bit smaller in proportion to the animal than it is to a bird, but it's differently shaped, right? It's kind of probably had a little bit different function, maybe helping the arms move rather than attachment for muscles, but as far as flight. So yeah, I don't know about all the proportions. I do know that T-Rexes had very, very long legs in respect to their body, as some birds do today. So they were optimizing those big legs and movement. Even though they probably weren't super fast, they could take big steps. I'm going to go ahead and pause for a moment and see if we have any Sioux or T-Rex questions before I go on and tell you about Sue's injuries. Or Alex, if you have any other questions you wanted to cover or ask, we can always wait for the Q&A too.
I think we can hold for the Q&A for the moment and let you keep rolling with Sue.
Awesome. Sounds good. All right. So Sue, right, top of the food chain. There was nothing that actively hunted T-Rex except parasites to infect them. Top of the food chain. Other T-Rexes, they might fight over food, but nothing else is going to hunt this thing actively. Still not an easy life. So T-Rex, It's hunting Ankylosaurus. These guys live together. Here's my fun chance to play with dinosaurs. That tail would do a number, right? So Ankylosaurus versus T-Rex. Tough to get through, and that tail really hurts. Another thing that lived together with T-Rex, and we know this because we find the fossils on similar levels of rock. Triceratops, right? You can get around that big old shield, you've got a good kill, but if not, ouch, again, those legs. So T-Rex would hopefully be finding a lot of duckbills to eat. They're big, their tails would hurt, but they're not quite like the horns of a Triceratops or the armor and club tail of Ankylosaurus. But T-Rex had to eat. And despite this sort of, I don't know, kind of rumor that's circulated around for almost 2 decades now, I think, we don't think T-Rex was a pure scavenger. We think T-Rex was an active hunter. It used those big eyes to track prey. It used the big legs to chase down the prey. And it used the jaws and its huge size to eat. And it needed to grow fast. This was more of a warm-blooded animal. So it was eating a lot of food very often. It probably needed to actively hunt. And it's hunting dinosaurs that are going to defend themselves. So if we look at Sue, I am going to move. It's only going to take a few seconds, so let me just go ahead and stop for just a second here. And I'll keep narrating. We're going to move around to Sue's side. Perfect. All right. So we're at Sue's side. I'm going to show you a couple things. So yeah, there we go. Sue's leg. If you look right here, it's a little hard to tell, but if you see Sue's far leg, it's pretty straight. This one's got that big bump on it. That is a sign of a really bad bone infection. Something injured Sue there. And that leg got infected. Now, we don't know exactly how Sue died. It might have been just old age, but it could have also been an infection or like sepsis, like a blood infection, possibly from this injury, from this bone infection here. Likely made it tough for Sue to walk. So we can tell some things like that just by analyzing the bones and the fossils. The tough part is knowing exactly what it was. Was it a Triceratops horn? Was it Ankylosaurus's tail? Was it a bad fall? One way or another, Sue went through some tough stuff. If we look here, it's a little hard to see, but hopefully you can see it. I'm pointing at the ribs, and you can see these 2 ribs have these big sort of lumps on them. And those 2 are just 2 of 9 total injured ribs or like damaged ribs that Sue had. Those are some of the worst. So something broke Sue's ribs. And this T-Rex is going through a lot in its life. Let's get better lighting here, Sue. If we look at up here, you can see right there, if you look at the top of the tail, I'm going to move out of the way. Some of those vertebrae are getting really kind of crusty and jagged. You can see some like in front here that are smoother, and then back behind in the tail, they're getting well worn. And that we actually believe Sue was dealing with arthritis or osteoporosis. So some bone degeneration from walking like a teeter-totter their whole life, balancing with that big 20-foot long tail. That's like half their body length. So this was starting to take its toll on Sue, all these different things. Now, again, as I said, we're not sure exactly how Sue died. That's still kind of a mystery. You know, we're studying different things, the possibility of an infection, the possibility of like the blood being poisoned or something like that. Oh, this is a cool image. I love this. So Sue's silhouette behind me here. But yes, lots of mysteries still about the T-Rex. Alex, just let me know when we're ready for Q&A. If not, I'll share kind of the last part here, which are a few mysteries of Sue and the T-Rex, and then we can have some time for questions. So a couple of the mysteries we've talked about. One of them, the small arms. What in the world did they use the tiny arms for? Another one, did they hunt in packs or did they hunt alone? We don't know for sure. It's hard to know animals' behavior just from finding the fossils. That's one of the problems with fossils. They can tell us about anatomy. They can give us hints as to behavior, but it's very tough because we don't see the animals actually interacting. Just like we don't know exactly what caused Sue's injuries to the leg, we don't know if they hunted in packs or not until maybe we find a trackway of several walking together. Or think what else we could find. Maybe a bunch gathered around to kill. Like they'd been eating together and somehow got trapped by a mudslide or something. And one of the final mysteries of the T-Rex, one of my favorites, if they are related very closely to birds, especially chickens, what do you all think the T-Rex might have had on its body? This is my second to last question for y'all. Feel free to put that in the chat if you have an idea. What might T-Rex have actually had all over its body? Oh yeah, here come the answers. Nice job. Yeah, Charlotte, Morgan saying feathers. Yeah, the thing is we have not found actual feather prints or feather follicles on a T-Rex skin print. Even the skin prints are rare. But we do know a dino, and some of you may have heard of it, called Eutyrannus. You hear that Tyrannus, it's another tyrannosaur, very closely related to T-Rexes, and it did have feathers. So did Velociraptor, another theropod meat eater. Birds are theropods. So the evidence points to very likely some type of fluff on a T-Rex. We have not found it yet. So one of my favorite mysteries of the T-Rex, and hopefully one that we will solve someday. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop and see if we've got some questions for the Q&A.
Folks are free. Please drop questions in the chat. Yes, awesome. It looks like we've got one. Robin has asked, was there a specific region where dinosaurs gathered, or was it all over?
Oh, great question, Robin. Yeah, so dinosaurs started to evolve when Pangea was just splitting apart. So dinosaurs were kind of dispersed throughout all the continents as they split, and then kind of evolved as continents joined and not. But yeah, so basically there were dinosaurs all over the earth. We even find fossils on Antarctica because back then it wasn't covered with ice, right? There wasn't even much ice at all on the earth, except maybe at the very tips of mountains. So dinosaurs were dispersed all over, but different species were found in different places. For example, and it kind of depends on the era too. By the Cretaceous, especially the late Cretaceous, when T-Rex lived, the continents were basically in their current formation, very, very close at least. And T-Rex is only found in North America, nowhere else. Why that is still being studied. It might have been another dinosaur crossed from Asia, got cut off, and evolved into T-Rex on North America. So there's no T-Rexes anywhere else. And of course, T-Rexes were one of the last dinos. They were ended by the asteroid. But yeah, so dinosaurs were dispersed all over the place, different times, different places. So forget all the dino movies you see where, okay, come on, there we go. So forget all the dinosaur movies you see where every kind of dinosaur, they're all like living together and they're all roaming around together and frolicking together. It makes a pretty cool movie, but really dinosaurs were spread across so much time. Uh-oh. They weren't supposed to do this to me. Sorry, guys. This is our cool Sue Light show.
This bone, these tailbones, and these ribs. All these bones belong to one of the largest predators to ever walk the earth, a Tyrannosaurus rex. And this T-Rex is named Sue.
All right, I've already talked about that. I'm going to move back to the skull where we can do, it is a very cool show, Colleen, very cool. And so we will move to the skull real quick so we have a little bit more quiet and I can answer questions. For those of you who are into tech, it is really cool. It is a light mapping. And so they put the stuff up on Sue's body without ever touching it. So you don't have to touch the fossil, but it shows what's real and not, all sorts of cool stuff. All right. Any other questions here? Oh, I see. Okay. How does the trauma on Sue compare to that found on other adult T-Rex? Oh, good question. We're in the perfect spot. I didn't even anticipate this. Look on Sue's lower jaw, right by my finger. You can see there's these weird holes. For a long time, we thought this was a sort of infection because it's found on about 12 to 15% of T-Rexes. This is a fairly common trauma. We thought it was a parasite, a tiny protozoan that would literally eat through the bone, infect the throat, and kill the T-Rex, based on a similar infection in birds today. But just 2 years ago, Jing-May O'Connor, again, our paleontologist, studied this, and it doesn't fit the pattern in birds. And it looks like it's starting to heal when she looks in a microscope. So it probably didn't kill Sue. So we've kind of got, a weird thing going on here with these holes in the jaw. Like, what in the world happened? One of those mysteries of the T-Rex. It's like the more we learn about these guys, the more questions we seem to get. Alex, any other questions to send my way?
Yep, I think we do. We have Charlotte has asked, do you have any suggestions for teenagers or adults interested in paleontology to pursue that interest?
Absolutely, yeah. So definitely, I mean, start young reading dinosaur books, but do look for books by paleontologists or by trusted sources. You know, you don't just want to go watch the Jurassic movies. You want to get some good books and, you know, check with the librarian, check with someone you know, a teacher a science teacher who would know which ones to do, but especially at museums, check them out. Start with the books. Also, if you have a chance to attend a dinosaur camp or something like that, that's great. A lot of areas have local fossil hunting clubs. I can speak to Illinois because that's where I'm at, but we've got something called ESCONI, Earth Science Club of Northern Illinois. And you can actually join and go on like fossil hunting field trips. So great way to get your feet wet, try that. Now, after that, definitely you want to study lots of science, but also earth sciences like geology. You want to study anatomy because so much of what we do with dinosaurs is based on looking at animals today. You've heard me talk a lot about birds, you know, other similar creatures we're going to look at. We have the bones to work with on dinosaurs. We sometimes have to kind of compare and extrapolate from modern day animals, so anatomy. And then if you get a chance, you know, do something like an internship, talk with a paleontologist once you get to that higher up level. But yeah, definitely start with volunteering, camps, reading books about dinos, going on like fossil hunting trips, see if you like it. It takes a lot of patience, but it can be pretty darn cool. Yeah, I apologize for the background sounds. We requested that all off at the beginning and it didn't happen. So I think it's going to lay down a little bit here.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeff. And we understand some things are automatic and harder to shut off. In the meantime, folks, I want to remind folks that we do have closed captions available. It can help out with some of that auditory processing issue. You can activate closed captions by looking down at the bottom of your screen. There should either be a button for captions. If you do not see the captions button, look for the button that is the 3 horizontal dots that says more. Click it, and you should have the option for captions. Kelsey, I see you have a question for me at the Public Policy Pals level. I believe, thank you so much for signing up. And I want to take a moment to thank all of our reoccurring members. We really appreciate your support. It does so much to make sure that we can provide resources to self-advocates free of charge to them and help them empower their communities. That is an automated process, if I remember correctly. Other ASAN team members, please correct me if I'm wrong. You've signed up, we have your information, and those perks should be on the way to you. So that's an answer to that question. Jeff, I would like to bounce questions back to you of what are facts that what are dinosaur facts that surprise your visitors the most? So for example, are people surprised to hear that bit about feathers, or even that bit of, I was very surprised about the size of Sue's brain.
Yeah, the brain. Well, yeah, there's a lot of surprising facts. And I think one of the most is that dinosaurs are not extinct, that birds we do now consider to be living dinosaurs. I think another thing that surprises a lot of guests are what is not a dinosaur. So there's a lot of animals that are prehistoric that live together with dinosaurs and reptiles, but they're not dinosaurs. So paleontologists and museums then take very specific view of dinosaurs as a certain family of reptiles. It's not just anything big, prehistoric, reptilian, and scary. And so people will be surprised to know, first off, pterosaurs, pteranodons, pterodactyls, quetzalcoatlus, those are not dinosaurs. I got one on my shirt here. Those are not dinosaurs. It's accurate, they live together with dinosaurs, but they're a totally different family. So a lot of people are surprised by that. They are fairly closely related, more so than a lizard, but they're not a dinosaur. Mosasaurs, right? The stars of the ocean in some of these movies, those gigantic things swimming in the water, they're more closely related to lizards. It's like a giant Komodo dragon with flippers. They're in no way dinosaurs. Dinosaurs are land livers, so they stayed on land for the most part. So I think sometimes it surprises people that these things, a lot of times you think are a dinosaur are not, and then maybe something you think is not a dinosaur, like a bird, is. Another thing that's, this may lead into another question, but a recent development with studies of dinosaurs, there's that whole thought of dinosaurs as being these lumbering, cold-blooded things. We think most of them are warm-blooded. They're pretty special amongst reptiles. So yeah, oftentimes a lot of these, like the meat eaters, the long necks, were probably more warm-blooded. And that comes from studying their fossils and studying inside the bones, sort of the byproducts of their metabolism. So how fast did they process food and energy? We can compare that, again, know animals today. We compare that to, or know about animals today. We compare that to the animals today. We look for that pattern. We can analyze it. We see these creatures were growing fast. They were eating a lot of food every day. They were metabolizing really fast, warm-blooded, if not almost hot-blooded, some of them, like birds. So that's another surprising thing and a newer thing about dinosaurs. I could keep going, but dinosaur colors. Some dinosaurs we think were rainbow colored. When they turned their head, it was like a hummingbird, iridescent. We're studying dinosaur colors. That's some of the newest things emerging with dinosaurs. Rainbow dinos.
That was a bunch of information that I was not privy to. So that's very exciting, especially the iridescence. I love that where I live, we have these small black birds called grackles, and they have iridescent bodies. That is very, very cool. We do have a new question in the chat that is interesting, and I have not heard of it, so I'm not sure if you will have heard of it either, but Zachary asks, has anyone heard or tried using the Autism Travel Club card? Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I haven't heard of that. Thank you for asking that, Zachary. If anyone attending tonight has heard of it, please feel free to chime in. In the meantime, Charlotte has mentioned the National Parks program, which I'm going to guess, because I've signed up for that before, you can get a membership to United States National Parks, and it allows you, it's a year-long membership, and I believe it allows you to get in like either for a discount or for free, and it really is very cost effective if you love national parks. Random product placement today. But I will ask another question that we have, which is you've kind of gone into it. So if you have any more really interesting facts of what are interesting recent developments in our knowledge of dinosaurs.
Yes. Yeah. So I was kind of leading into that. I think I hit a lot of them, the warm-bloodedness, the iridescence and the color of dinosaurs, but I'll go a little more into the color and like, how do we know this, right? Their colors aren't preserving. Well, our technology is kind of finally catching up to evidence that was already there. So we can actually look at dinosaur skin prints or feather prints or actual feathers if we were to get one preserved, say in amber, which we have. you can actually use microscopes and zoom in. The colors might not preserve, but the interesting thing we found, once again with birds today, birds are our key. If you zero in on birds, you can see that their cells have little pockets in them where the melanin fits in, and the melanin giving the color, right? The pigments for our skin and such. And it depends on the shape of the pocket, and that relates to what color it is. So if you have a roundish pocket, it's going to give a kind of auburn or reddish color. A tightly packed rods are going to give the iridescence, and more separate rods are going to give a darker black, dark brown color. So we don't have to rely on finding the colors. We've learned how to use shapes to determine color, and it's pretty cool. So that's how we're starting to look at dinosaur colors. Even if the true color is not preserved, we can find the pigment. Now that still makes it a bit difficult if you don't find the feathers, because maybe their feathers were, you know, a bright green or something. We don't know.
That's incredibly cool. I did not realize like the shape itself could give you hints about the color. That's incredible.
Yeah, these things we're learning.
So let me see here. Okay. What is your favorite dinosaur fact personally?
My favorite dinosaur fact, I've actually already given it. It's that birds are dinosaurs and dinosaurs are not extinct. So that is my favorite. One more fun fact I can give. I almost thought for a second, Alex, you're going to say, what is your favorite dinosaur? And excuse the roaring, it will be over in just like 10 seconds. There's a fight going on. T-Rex, Triceratops are like fighting over there. We'll leave them to it. My favorite dinosaur is actually a dino that is one of the most aquatic as dinosaurs go. I said that they stick to the land, but there is a dinosaur that actually took to the water at times to hunt. A dinosaur called Spinosaurus. And we got a Spinosaurus at the Field Museum called Sobek. It's a replica, but it's really incredible cast. And Spinosaurus is my favorite, both because it's really cool looking with the spine, if those of you who know Spinosaurus, and because it kind of pushes that envelope of dinosaurs by actually getting into the water and venturing where most others will not go to get its food. So those are some cool facts about Spinosaurus and my favorite dino.
That actually dovetails into another question we had. We wanted to ask you a bit more about Maximo and Sobek.
Perfect. Yeah. So Sobek is the Spinosaurus. And so Maximo and Sobek are both casts or exact replicas made from real dinos that are in different areas. So Sobek, the original Spinosaurus, is in Morocco. And Maximo, the original Titanosaur or Patagotitan, is in Argentina. And so we do have casts of those. Sobek, again, I've talked about a little bit. Spinosaurus, incredible meat eater with this big, beautiful spine, crocodilian jaws, semi-aquatic. Maximo is one of the two biggest dinosaurs of any type ever found, the other being Argentinosaurus. They're both titanosaurs. Maximo is called Patagotitan, the titan from Patagonia in Argentina. As you might guess, Argentinosaurus is also from Argentina. They're very close relatives and ridiculously large. So I have a little model that won't totally do it justice, but this is Patagotitan. Very long neck, very long tail. These big herbivores would reach up to be able to eat those plants high up in the trees. But this creature is as long as 3 T-Rexes nose to tail. 1 T-Rex for the neck, 1 for the body, 1 for the tail. That's 3 T-Rexes in a row, 122 feet long. Longer than a blue whale, but not heavier. So the debate about largest is still out. Do you go by length or do you go by weight? But yeah, largest land animal ever, certainly. And it weighed probably as much as 7 T-Rexes. So really, really big. And that's Maximo, the biggest. And Maximo and Sobek are both downstairs. Unfortunately, I can't show you because it would be a long trip, but they're in our main hall along with some cool pterosaurs.
Awesome. Thank you. So we have another question from Alice, um, asking around accessibility days that some museums host where they mandate masking. And this is a harm reduction in the ongoing pandemic. When it comes to that, what is the best way to give feedback to a museum and suggest new programming if you'd like to have that happen in your city with your museums?
That's kind of a tough one. Eduarda, do you?
Sure. And I think she also followed that up with accessibility days. So the Field Museum used to host what we called Sensory Saturdays. And these are primarily focused on children and families. We would have events in our Crown Family Play Lab, which is our early childhood space. Currently, what we're doing is having conversations and how do we expand that experience so it's an all ages program, and we would utilize the entire museum for accessibility events as well. So those are still in the early conversations, and primarily because with COVID, we had a decrease in our staffing levels, and now that we're building those back up, we can expect an increase in the number and variety of programs that we offer. But I would I would advise that you contact our museum if you email accessibility@fieldmuseum.org. And our representative then can take those suggestions and make sure that they reach our executive level and have those conversations as well. I mean, Jeff and I can certainly take that feedback back to our directors, but I think to start with our accessibility office, that would probably be the best step.
Thank you. Thank you, Eduarda. And I guess to ask a follow-up question, do y'all know that, is it common for museums to have accessibility offices that visitors could reach out to if they have suggestions or questions about accessibility services? And I recognize you may not know that answer because I don't know if museums are standard that way.
I don't think they're standardized, but I think they are becoming more common. In the city of Chicago, I know the Shedd Aquarium has an office. There's different, it sort of depends on the institutions, but we also are involved with different organizations or consortiums around Chicago, and there's many cultural institutions involved with that. So there are advocates across the city, and I would suspect that that's true for most urban areas.
Awesome. Thank you. That helps. And it's good to know that a lot of museums are starting to shift towards offering and thinking about accessibility and building that out into their staff. Right. It doesn't look like we have more dinosaur questions just yet, or field museum related questions. So I'm going to pull from ASNs right now. You've given us your favorite dinosaur fact. You've told us about Maximo and Sobek. And one thing you showed us a little bit. And I thought of this because on y'all's website, there is a wonderful photo of a tiny child touching Maximo's foot. So I had the question, we had the question of, can you touch the dinosaurs? Or less exuberantly, how do you involve sensory input into your exhibits? Like you showed us a little bit earlier.
Yeah, well, you can hear a little bit of it right now. Unfortunately, we've cycled back to that audio presentation. But yeah, we do have that audio presentation. We have some other audio presentations at different parts of the exhibit where people can kind of listen in as well. We have like the touches where you can hear the dinosaur names. We have a lot of touchables, like again, right here, we have more teeth. You can touch the teeth. On the other side, there's an ear bone you can touch. So we do try to incorporate a lot of touchables. There are certain exhibits or certain spots where it's a little bit more multisensory. My usual spot to work is called the Science Hub. And it's the Granger Science Hub, and we always have touchables out. We have things people can come in and touch. You can learn about, like, touch a skull, a real skull from like a deer, usually not a dinosaur, but like a deer. You can touch an exact replica of the entire skull of an Ice Age bear, or we had a mammoth tooth out today. You can touch the real pelts of animals. And, you know, again, that's going to vary by person, what you're comfortable with, but we would have some pelts out available to touch. You can see what an Arctic fox's soft fur feels like. We did that today. That is in the Science Hub. That's for all ages. Eduarda mentioned the Play Lab. There's a lot of wonderful sensory opportunities there. It's geared more towards children ages 2 through 6, 7-ish. And then again, with the other exhibits, we do try to incorporate some things. Eduarda, did you have anything else to add?
I don't think so. I think you highlighted most of what we offer.
Awesome, thank you. So we actually don't have any more questions on our end, and it doesn't look like the guests tonight have any further questions about the Field Museum. Do y'all have any other things that you want to add tonight, Jeff?
The only other thing was my last question for everyone out there. I would love for everyone who's comfortable to put their favorite dinosaur in the chat, because I always like to end with that. And I always just love to hear all the different dinosaurs that people enjoy. So what is your favorite dino? Pop that in the chat. I would love to call some of those out and see what people enjoy. But other than that, as people are adding that, I just want to say we also do have some other virtual offerings. We do have one, I don't know if it's listed yet, but if you check, it's a virtual, special virtual Sue presentation. You'll get some repeat from this, but not all of it. And that is on May 14th, I want to say. Then there's also, we have school presentations for homeschools, for school classrooms. Be sure to share that weekly, and those are virtual during the school year of Sue and occasionally dinosaurs. All right, let me check. We got, oh, nice, yeah. Oh, so many different dinos. Brontosaurus, because yes, they're bringing Brontosaurus back, right? Yeah, it's actually a thing again. Deinonychus, terrible claw. Yes, this is new to me. Like I said, I don't know everything about dinosaurs. I did not know about Tongonophon Keeley, the 4-inch tall bug eater. I need to look that up now. Thank you for teaching me a new one. Ankylosaurus, Velociraptor, Bronto again. Parasaurolophus, good. We have that holotype here. Velociraptor Apatosaurus, the other relative of Brontosaurus. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing all this. That's all I have.
Awesome. And thank you so much for joining us tonight. And I want to thank everybody who has come to join us. Kiefer, I'm actually getting into that. You can get this lovely shirt that we have today by joining our monthly membership program at the Policy Pals level. And I'm going to drop in our channel, in the chat again, how to donate to ASAN, become an ASAN member, and also how to become a Field Museum member. You can click these links to join. I also want to say, again, this event tonight is possible thanks to the support of members of our community. All of our work is available for free to the community, to self-advocates, thanks to the generosity of our donors. If you cannot donate directly to ASAN, a lot of folks will often do fundraisers via Facebook or other platforms where they might crowdfund for their birthday. There are many different ways to give, and we appreciate all of them. Thank y'all so much for joining us for this Autism Acceptance Month. Thank you so much to Jeff and Eduarda and the dinosaur crew at the Field Museum. We've really, really appreciated collaborating with you. But we have reached the end of our programming this evening, and y'all are free to enjoy the rest of your nights.
Thank you all.